Hi, I'm Mark Chasen, and I've been asked to speak about copyright in the 21st century and how technology is changing our relationship to our works in copyright, and how new technologies are also providing new opportunities to monetize our works in the 21st century. My background actually in media started when I was a composer and arranger, and when my love of music was exceeded by my hate of poverty, I became a lawyer. And as a lawyer, I did quite a bit in the area of copyright and entertainment, and later started a company called eMusic, which was the first company in history to sell digital music files online. And after we took that company public and I exited, IBM asked me to lead their digital media division in the consulting group, which I did, and got a little corporate experience from that, and then left IBM to become an entrepreneur again and started another company in the peer-to-peer space, which many in the traditional media actually hate, but I think also provides great new opportunities. And now I've taken all my interests and wrapped it in the wheel of finance with transformative capital, and we focus primarily on renewable energy and LOHAS. Well, it was kind of interesting because when we first started selling music by the song with eMusic, and we licensed it completely, we paid ASCAP and BMI and Harry Fox and the labels, and we had pure licensing deals, but the majors, and I'll remove some of the expletives from some of the conversations I had with some of the executives of the major labels, said, "Read my lips, we will never sell music by the song on the internet, and there will be bullets flying for you, you're a dead man." And the irony of it all is one of the executives came from Universal and ended up actually buying eMusic later on. So it's a pretty funny story, and I think what it is that actually copyright started after the advent of the printing press around the 18th century in Britain. And after the printers started getting a little bit of a monopoly, they influenced the king to pass a law to protect the monopoly. And over the years, it's really the purpose of copyright was to control who could copy a certain piece of work. And it worked really well in a physical world. But now we are in a digital world, and things have shifted pretty radically. And Napster, who is a pretty well-known brand, really kind of was responsible for that big shift in allowing people to freely distribute their content, or whether it was with their permission or not, but the opportunity is that they could freely distribute content, whether they owned it or not. And pretty soon, on the heels of Napster, there were dozens, if not hundreds, of other file sharing services, some of which, like Earth Station 5, was somewhere in Palestine, where copyright wasn't recognized in the Gaza Strip, and borders were changing, and we don't know what happened to that group. But suffice it to say that peer-to-peer, the internet, and digital media is here to stay. As well, what we found in the old days of traditional media, we needed the studios, we needed the record labels to produce our music or our film or our art, because quite frankly the equipment for production was very expensive. As well, distribution, prints and advertising, records were very expensive. So now, with about $5,000, you can have Final Cut Pro, a Mac, make that $10,000, and a really nice camera, and now you're in the film business. Or you have a professional recording studio. With the internet, distribution is free. So the power and the monopoly of the major labels and film studios has been somewhat marginalized in this digital world. We've also seen the advent of the PVR, personal video recorder, sometimes known as a DVR, or digital video recorder, such as TiVo or Replay TV. And these devices, as many of you know and many of you use, allow you to time shift. And this time shifting was approved as being legal in the Sony Betamax case, where the Supreme Court said that as long as the technology has non-infringing uses and is used for copying and time shifting, then such a use is legal. Well, seizing on that, the TiVos and the replay TVs and other PVR manufacturers now have put a unit in the market that allows you to digitally record and fast forward through commercials. And this has really changed much of the economics of television. So what we're seeing now is, rather than people watching through commercials because they're held hostage, they skip through commercials. Then it becomes very difficult for new television productions to be monetized, and advertisers are leaving radio and television mediums and looking for more interactive mediums where they have immediate feedback, such as the internet. On top of that, we have another play and influence, which is convergence. More and more, the lines are being blurred between internet and interactivity, and things like our cell phones, our televisions, and our cars, and our homes. So what we see in the future is distribution being free, production being cheap, an overload of content, and the ability for people to fast forward through commercials. So what does that leave us with in the future as a way to monetize our media? And having been involved in digital media for about 12 years, I've racked my brain with coming up with some of these solutions. And actually it was interesting because in the early days of e-music, I was selling CDs, and a couple of my competitors went public and raised $100 million and completely commoditized the CD space. And they started spending money like fiends in acquiring their customers, and I realized that I'd make more money in advertising than I would in selling CDs. Advertising, in fact, kind of has been around for a long time, or I should say sponsorship has been around for a long time. It used to be that actors in a play or composers, arrangers, and musicians were sponsored by either a church or king. Today's churches and kings are the corporations, and they want to reach an audience. So the value of a brand is really its ability to attract a crowd and reach an audience. One other area where we can generate money is live events, because live events cannot be digitized. And it's kind of interesting to see the shifts in copyright from these reproducible digital units now to more toward going toward experiences. And for example, when we look at live events, we look at people going to the theater to see a movie. And at the time that video was released, the Motion Picture Association of America and Jack Valenti compared video to Jack the Ripper. Kind of a harsh analogy, considering that video later became the tail that wagged the dog and made more money for the film industry than did theatrical release. So what we've seen over the years is a reluctance to embrace new technologies by the media industry. We saw this happen in the early days when the publishers fought records, and then when the record labels fought radio, and when the publishers fought photocopying, when the networks fought the VCR. So it's very interesting to see over the years how media has continually fought against new technologies, yet when they embraced it, they made more money than they ever thought imaginable from their old traditional media. I mean, we take a look at the music industry now. The music industry in about 2000 was a $50 billion a year industry, which has now declined to about $10 billion a year. If they would have embraced Napster and worked with Napster and charged everybody $5 a month, Napster probably would have had about 200 million people right now downloading a buffet of music, and they would have been making something in the neighborhood of $1 billion a month just from Napster. So it's just amazing to me to see how the reluctance has crippled the industry. Now what we're looking at in film is with the advent of the internet and the attempts at DRM, which is digital rights management. In other words, the the attempt to limit and restrict the use of content in order to preserve copyright, which has failed. If you can see it, if you can hear it, it's inherently insecure. And until we get a microchip that implanted in our brain and the signals sent directly into our brain, anything we hear and see and that gets out into the world of light and sound vibrations will be inherently insecure. So if we know that there is lots of content that is being distributed with or without the copyright owner's permission all over the internet, and there's massive markets for it, as seen by the crowds going to YouTube and the $1.8 billion purchase of YouTube, that there are ways to monetize the internet and video on the internet and music on the internet. The ways that this will happen is through embedding advertising and product placement and interactive dynamic product placement into videos and into music. It will also happen from creating experiences online. One of the problems we face now that anybody with a camera and Final Cut Pro can become a producer, distributor of content is that we're seeing an overload of content. So by creating filtering mechanisms, by creating environments where people are matched by content, by delivering relevant content with relevant products and relevant advertisers to the viewers that are dynamically created, is going to be a massive boom in the new way that media is actually monetized. By virtue of what YouTube sold for, which is $1.8 billion, you could say that YouTube was a huge success. Now, how much money that is being generated on YouTube in advertising, I don't know, but I'm sure that Google will find ways to monetize YouTube and all of its viewers. I personally like some of the things happening with Rever, which actually shares the advertising revenue with the video producers, and they don't ask for an exclusive. So what happens then is that many of those videos still end up on YouTube, and people go to YouTube because they can find whatever they want. And I think that may be the fundamental mistake of Rever. So I think it's a potentially successful model, but you have to create more of an environment and more of an experience. The other thing I think that is going to be very profound is the ability to actually send notices and emails out to certain people who enjoy certain types of videos and let them know that a video or a live event is being shown at a specific time, or that they'll be able to sell a fan club membership where a video camera follows around a celebrity and the fan gets a view at the celebrity's life. Celebrities and their producers can also then bid to get close. So the new real estate might be, do they get to go to the backstage at the concert? Do they get to go to the film premiere and meet the celebrity? So, you know, we're talking about access being a new form of real estate. We're seeing Dave Matthews now doing a contest with SMS or phone texting where universities can compete for a free concert. So that, you know, what we're seeing is new creative ideas in ways in which music artists and filmmakers can monetize their media. So what happens then many times is that live events are sponsored by people who want their brand widely distributed. And so looking at the value of content generally, the value of content declines over time. For example, let's take a look at any sporting event. When that event is happening, the value is very high, and you see HBO, for instance, capitalizing on their fights in UFC. You see, sporting events being broadcast live and sponsors paying large money for that, and then later it just becomes archive, and then those clips could potentially be licensed to news and things like that. But what is going to happen is, for those fans that want the best of compilations, now you can start inserting in video, in film, in live events, advertising links that will spawn dynamic ads that then can continue as people watch those archives, and as the declining value of that media takes hold, they will still be able to derive value through the sponsorship and advertising. Now, dynamic ads are those that are created in real time. And what we're going to see, I think, more and more is personalization being done so that, for instance, we have a profile on, say, My Yahoo or MySpace. And what happens, that profile says, you know, gee, Mark's a healthy guy, he's into renewable energy, he loves playing music and surfing and traveling to the Far East. In the beginning, and then you start using predictive modeling. In the beginning of the week, Mark's in business mode. Toward the end of the week, he wants to know what's going on in town for the weekend. He likes trying new restaurants. So that becomes my profile, and now as I'm watching media, rather than having this fuzzy logic that Nielsen uses of, we think this music or this film appeals to this demographic, and trying to somewhat guess at who's watching. Now we know exactly who's watching. We know exactly who's listening, and we therefore can connect them with the things they're interested in, which therefore means that they're going to welcome the ad and link that ad with positive feelings, while doing the advertiser the greatest service of minimizing their waste. So having the dynamic ads allows us to be able to create ads on the fly within the media directed at the consumer who's actually watching or listening. What we will see happening in the future as the convergence between internet, television, and film becomes really completely one experience is that while we're watching a movie, say, on TV, on our internet and interactive TV, is we say, wow, that's a really beautiful place where Lord of the Rings is shot. I wonder where that is. And you hit the information button, and the movie slides over, and it says, you know, this scene was shot in the Remarkables Mountains in New Zealand. If you're interested in learning more, click here. If you're interested in taking a trip, click there. If you're interested in photographs of the Remarkables, click here. And what you can do then is you can start selling trips relevant to that information. If somebody likes a jacket or a car, or wonders, you know, who does the actress's hair, you know, what brand of wine that somebody's drinking in a certain scene, you know, who the name of the actor or actress is. All of these things then can be interactively embedded into the production. And you know what's interesting is don't quote me on this, but I believe that the film industry right now is about an $8 billion a year industry. And there's been some market research that shows that product placement will be a $5 billion a year industry by 2010. So I think that what we're going to see is massive opportunities in the film and television and broadcast industries to utilize product placement and dynamic links of advertising so that the advertising is pulled rather than pushed. The programming won't be interrupted. It will be embedded and be part of a flow and a natural experience, so that, you know, rather than, geez, you know, I'm getting interrupted by this ad that is relevant, I can't stand that brand now because I'm linking a feeling of frustration or maybe even anger toward that company that interrupted my programming. Now I'm actually embracing it because the ads I'm seeing, I'm not going to be seeing, you know, Maybelline cosmetic ads and ads for Tampax. I'm going to be seeing ads about things that are important to me, about a new renewable energy company, about a new restaurant that opened up in Los Angeles, about you know, the type of wine I want to drink, about the type of vacation I want to have. And I will appreciate that ad, and I'll be interested, and I won't want to skip through it. So I think there's massive amounts of money to be made in product placement, dynamically linked advertising, and in embedding advertising in video production. In order for producers today, I think, to monetize their works more effectively, given that their works will most likely find their way onto YouTube with or without their permission, is to actually embed in their works many of the product placement applications that exist. I mean, what's interesting is with Flash you can now do layers, so you can produce your movie and even put a layer over the top of your video production that will then open up new links that you can dynamically control through that Flash layer. Some of the things you can do is while you're making your movie and you know, in the scripting phase, you say, you know, Joe takes a sip of a beer, and you go to several beer companies and say, you know, it could be a Heineken, it could be a Miller, it could be a Bud. What would you like it to be? And that these sponsors then pay for their beer to be the beer of choice. Later what we're going to see is you can green screen somebody pretending to drink a beer, and then we can dynamically include in that scene whatever, you know, sponsor is paying for that beer to be drunk at that time. And so I think those are some of the big opportunities for producers to utilize product placement. I think the other thing is to also say we are going to release a premiere on the internet at this time to in essence draw and monetize a crowd, and to collect the email addresses of those people who watch those films and potentially even get some profiling as to age, as to gender, as to their location, so that we know that this person really does watch this film, and that we can then more effectively monetize that video or that film work by targeting advertisers that want to reach that demographic. You know, although it's much easier for larger feature films with well-known producers, directors, and brand talent attached to it in order to get these product placements and deal with the larger product placement agencies such as Rogers & Cowan, I think that there's going to be opportunities to just monetize aggregated content. For example, what has sprung out from the internet are companies that aggregate smaller site traffic and create a much bigger, broader overall traffic perspective to advertisers. And you know, many of the big advertisers, they don't want to manage small campaigns. So what has happened is that some of the people realize there's a lot of traffic to be had by aggregating small sites. So by doing so, they could go after the big advertisers because they still had, you know, hundreds of millions of impressions a month to sell, and they could actually identify the sites and the demographics. And then a large advertiser like a Coca-Cola would say, well, I'll buy all 100 million impressions because I want to appeal to everyone, potentially. Or, no, you know what, I really want to appeal to only, you know, teens right now. So give me all the youth-oriented sites that you have, and maybe that's 15 million impressions a month. And so by I think we're going to see the same thing here with smaller and independent video producers, that once they are able to put their works out onto the internet and create some traffic, there will be other advertising agencies, so to speak, that want to start monetizing that traffic. And as long as you can then, through Flash or some other mechanism, embed into your video a link that will allow them to serve advertising into that video, then you know, that's one way to make money. As to product placement, it may start at the local level, which is, look, I'm going to make a video, and it's going to be outside of Joe's car wash. And so Joe's car wash is going to get some attribution, and maybe you go to Joe and you say, look, you know, we're gonna sit outside of your car wash, you know, having a dialogue, waiting for the car to get done, and while we're doing that, we're going to say what a great car wash Joe's is. Okay, so it may happen at a local level if you're talking about independent video and going out and doing your own product placement, but that again is another way to monetize your video works. In doing many of the sponsorship contracts and product placement inserts, it's also going to be very important for, I think, film producers to make sure that they have their agreements in writing, that they get all clearances, releases, and rights to use the name, the likeness, and location that they may, or product that they may be inserting into their film and video. I think once that is done, then they can feel pretty confident that they will, one, be able to collect their money, because I've seen many times where sometimes somebody says, sure, I'll sponsor you, and then they don't get the proper waivers, and the person stiffs them, and they say, well, I'll sue you for using my name and likeness or product in your video. So it's very important to have yourself contractually buttoned up in order that you can profit from this. In summary, we have some incredible opportunities with the internet and new technologies to monetize our works. I think we're going to see a massive democratization of media, and no longer will it be that 1% at the top that makes all the money, but we will see a more diffused and even distribution of the money to be made from media as a result of new technologies and the internet. I feel that convergence will continue to march forward, and that pretty soon our experience in our television viewing, with digital cinema, on our cell phones, and on our computers will all be very integrated. Let's face it, everybody knows who we are now. We are profiled. And we might as well get something for our profile, and that is time-saving relevancy. And the more that I think media providers can provide truly relevant and convenient and exceptional experiences, the more money they will make. And that rather than worrying so much about copyright in the future, let's think about building a brand that can draw an audience, and an audience that we can monetize. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that some of what I shared today is of value to you.